Good afternoon, Americans. This is your favorite alien and Santa Baba here on the afternoon of Saturday, January 16th, 2021. And I got a few responses. Well, I would say a few, over 120 of them. And they wanted to know more about the national wound. And what I mean by national wound. I don't know why. I thought I explained it, but anyway, here goes the national wound. And this is in relation to you as human beings. Okay? In this planet, human beings, especially Americans, and your way of thinking has got the globe in the last century. You have made sure that the globe looks at things through your way of thinking, except for countries like Russia, China, and other small countries in the South Asia region and South America. But for the most part, 85% of the countries on this planet look at it through your point of view, which is binary. That's off and on, yes and no, 1 and 0. And that's what started your national wound. Back in 1776, you were 14 different colonies with 14 ways that you did business with Great Britain. Each colony was different than the other colony. They had nothing in common other than being British subjects. There wasn't such thing as American, and there never was such thing as an American. And this is something that it's hard to say, but as an alien from another planet, I can see it out there. That's why I'm saying, what is it to be an American? The national wound follows your binary thinking, us versus them. Now, when you guys decided to split, and the group that you decided to split from was not all 13 colonies, it was a group from Boston originally, then Virginia started in, then the other colonies, but the other colonies were kind of minor. It was Virginia and Massachusetts that really started all this mess. So the us became the patriots, the ones that wanted to succeed from the British Empire. The them were the loyalists, as you call them here. The British called you Whigs and Tories. You called yourself patriots and loyalists. So for 8 years, you had an uneasy relationship between the patriots and the loyalists, and you were harboring on each other's side. There was a lot of killings or a lot of destruction that happened during that time. So in 1783, the treaty was finally signed, and most of the loyalists, a lot of them, left to Canada, the West Indies, England, and other places on the British Empire. Now, that's the them. But the them never did disappear because you still had loyalists here. So you still had the us, and the us were becoming to be shaped into something different too. The us wasn't patriots anymore. The them were still kind of loyalists, but they soon became other things. The us got split into different ideologies and different people. And then the them became the Irish and all the other associated Europeans once the loyalists died off in the 1820s to 40s. So you had the us, which became certain states that wanted to be the same way. Other states weren't. To the 13 states, and then eventually the states that came in after them, their definition of us was different. And it got all the way through the Civil War. It was us versus them, and you never knew who the us was, and you never knew who the them was. The Civil War accomplished nothing. 650,000 people died for nothing. Because you still have the us versus them. And look at today. The wound has gotten so big that not even a Band-Aid can fix it. And the us versus them. Who's the us and who's the them? Republicans can't say we're the us, and Democrats can't say we're the them. Because look at the Republicans. You got us versus them within there, and then there's us versus them within those factions, and factions within factions. You see what I mean? And the Democratic Party. There's no them there. They consider themselves us. But certain us's, like AOC and her gang, is a certain us. The other Democrats are them. The Republicans are them. So you see, the us versus them is so mirrored right now that you can't put a Band-Aid on your wound. There was a way you could cauterize it when President Trump here, but you Democrats took more tissue out of that wound and now it's bleeding profusely. You could have stopped the us versus them and started colorizing the wound and then trying to figure out how are you going to close the wound and seal it. It's going to take decades to do that, but now it's not because you guys got it gushing. You continue with this impeachment and you're going to have President Biden who's going to be fighting his us, meaning his administration, versus them, meaning the rest of the factions in your Democratic Party, and the factions within the factions within the factions within the factions. That is a problem you have here. You got so many factions, you got to deal with them, and you don't even know how far it goes. On the Republican or Democratic side, or even the other sides, they don't care a darn about you two parties. There's us versus them there too. There's no such thing as binary anymore. It's not yes and no, guilty, not guilty. No. You got other things that you have to do in common. It's not like male and female. Now you got she, he's, he, she's, what's it, and what's coming down the line. You see what I mean? This is your favorite alien telling you, once again, we had to go through this in my society almost a millennia and a half ago. And we lost 14 billion people to this kind of way of thinking. 500,000 survived, and another 2 million DNAs who donated their DNAs to keep their DNA alive. Otherwise, our civilization wouldn't have gotten through this mess and gotten to where we are today. You guys don't even have a chance if you keep on going this way. You're heading to the Mayan ancestors who blew themselves up because they didn't understand us versus them and how to eliminate the us versus them. This is your favorite alien in Santa Baba saying, you guys got a tall order and you guys won't do it. Good day.